One by one, the enemy soldiers fell to the ground like tea being poured from a pot, their screams rising and falling across the battlefield as the steel tide of the Soviet army crushed through the Japanese positions. The land was filled with shattered bodies and ruined fortifications. Compared with those soldiers who rushed forward, obsessed with dying for the emperor, there was one man who followed a very different path. He inherited the so-called tradition of the Osaka, division, survival above all else, never dying needlessly. His name was Goda Gunji. At the early stage of the Battle of Nomonhan, unlike others who charged towards certain death, Goda hid deep inside a shell crater and refused to come out. When Soviet troops inspected the trenches and craters, he even used the corpses of fellow soldiers as cover, narrowly escaping detection. When night fell, Goda took advantage of the darkness and ran wildly toward the rear. In the chaos, he was even mistaken for a Soviet soldier by others, and the two sides fought each other in confusion. When they finally realized they were on the same side, the two decided to travel together. After being exposed to the burning sun all day, they desperately needed water, or their lives would not last much longer. By sheer luck, they found a machine gun with cooling water inside. Though the water reeked of gun oil, they swallowed it in large gulps without hesitation. But fate showed no mercy. A Soviet artillery shell came crashing down, and their small group was instantly wiped out. To stay alive, Goda continued to flee alone. He pushed his survival instincts to the extreme, sometimes even running directly behind Soviet tanks without looking back once. Explosions echoed everywhere, yet he wandered across the battlefield like an outsider, stepping among countless corpses. Soon, he discovered another wounded soldier who was barely alive. Not wanting to be alone on his escape, Goda helped the injured man, whose arm was badly damaged. Now the two relied on each other, and it seemed possible they might actually make it back to the Manchurian base. However, a passing Japanese officer was furious when he saw them. As a Showa man, how could a soldier be afraid of death and flee the battlefield? The officer ordered them to return to the front line and sacrifice themselves. This enraged Goda. The front line had already been completely destroyed, and after surviving this long, why should he go back just to die for nothing? Sensing Goda's real intent, the officer immediately backed down. All his talk of Bushido spirit vanished in an instant. He jumped into his vehicle and fled in embarrassment, relying solely on his obsession with survival.